think we're good. All right, guys. We're going to get started. First off, I want to say thanks for coming. Pretty awesome turnout for like our first event of the year. And we have a pretty awesome guest. So yeah, I mean, I'll kind of give you a chance to introduce yourself first. But
Sweet.
yeah.
Hi guys, my name's Josh Ramos. I'm a local 600 camera operator here in Chicago. I've been in the business for 15 years. I started on a little movie called Transformers 3. It was filming right down the street here. I'm a little bit about myself. I grew up in Chicago, born and raised. I went to Leiden High School in Franklin Park, and I ended up staying in town and going to Dominican University. And I was in like my third or fourth year of college, and somebody invited me to come work on a commercial, and then that turned into a movie. And then 15 years later, I'm here, and I've met some pretty interesting people along the way. You know, one of them's in the front right there. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here and chat with you guys. I've never gotten to do anything like this, and so if I get a little nervous, I'm used to being behind the camera. And I didn't really have anybody that did this for me when I was your guys' age, you know, so it's kind of cool to see what you guys are doing. I didn't go to film school. I went to school for nutrition and dietetics. I thought I was going to wind up working with movie stars and athletes in a different way. And then I got an opportunity on set, and then I got an opportunity to intern at a camera house, and that camera house is no longer around, but I learned a lot there, and it's what eventually got me into the union, and I ended up working my way up through the camera ranks, and now I'm at camera operator, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah.
I know there's probably like 3 or 4 questions.
No, that was perfect. Yeah, I guess let's just jump off from where we were left off.
Sure.
So my main question, I guess, is how did you bridge the gap between, some of the commercial shoots you were on and getting onto like union jobs?
Okay. So I was actually talking about this with some of the students outside. So I started off as a PA on commercials, and I got a really cool opportunity to intern at this really small camera house. One of my mentors, his name was Dave June. You probably know him. But he took me under his wing and kind of like taught me everything, you know, like from learning how ND work and learning how, you know, different lenses work and, you know, what lenses do. I knew nothing. I was one of those guys that you could have said, hey, can you go get me a T-stop from the camera truck? Have you guys heard that one? Okay, thank God. I was like, it would be bad if you guys didn't know that one. I didn't know anything. So I interned for 6 months at this camera house and went in as much as I could, learned as much as I could. And then the opportunity just kind of came where I was on a commercial. It was a 2-week commercial, and they were going to do a short film afterwards. And the second AC that was on the job didn't want to do it because it wasn't paid. So, you know, so that was a great opportunity for somebody like me to get on and learn and like get some real world experience, you know, hit the sticks and move lenses around and learn how to hand off lenses on set, you know, without the pressure of if I mess up, I'm not going to get fired. So I guess I did a decent enough job that the person that hired me pushed for me to be on the next job, which was out of the town, and it was union. And they're like, well, you can't go into a union city and not be union. And so they ended up calling the union hall, and they said, hey, well, this guy's he's been doing it for a little bit now. He understands what he's doing. He's green, he's young, but he's hungry, and he knows what he's doing, and we think he'll be a good addition to the local. So I got my paperwork, filled it all out, sent my check in, and then yeah, here we are 15 years later, or well, 14 now in the union. So
Yeah. So I guess I'm more wondering now, I guess, so you talked about how you got to an operator. How did you get, I guess, involved in Steadicam, and what was it like maybe not like, you don't have to get into logistics like financing it, but like purchasing a Steadicam and like really starting to get in that kind of role and making people see you as a Steadicam operator and not just an AC or a regular op?
Okay. Um, well, the first part of that is I played soccer in high school, and I played soccer in college, and I up until 10 years ago I was playing soccer, and I uh, I didn't want to let my athleticism go to waste. I really loved being able to move around, and I'm hyper. If you can tell, I can't really sit still, which is probably not a good thing for an operator, but somehow I do it. Um, and so the Steadicam, so when I was working on Transformers, I saw two things that really like wowed me, and one of them was the second best Steadicam operator in the world because you got the number one right here. This guy is Jacques Jouffre. You guys have probably heard about him. But he was this French Steadicam operator. He wore a scarf every day, jeans, and it was like $1,000 shirt, and it looked cool. When it was on him, he was moving this thing around like a ballerina. He's really excellent. And then I also saw the stunt guys, and I was like, do I want to run into the fire? Or do I want to kind of avoid the fire? And so I decided it was going to be one of those two. And so fast forward down the road, I got into camera operating or camera assisting, and I kind of gave myself like a 5-year, 10-year period where I was going to say I want to do this and eventually move up. But things kind of don't work out sometimes. You have to be flexible in the industry. Things will happen. You get strikes, you get COVID, you get all these different things. But COVID came around, and right before COVID, I was working on a show called Empire, and the Steadicam operator is a very young guy, um, and he's become a really good friend of mine. He kind of encouraged me. He was like, "Man, how long are you gonna stay ACing for?" He's like, "Seems like you want to do this," and he was a good little whisper in my ear to like move on. So I ended up getting there's a guy in LA, his name's Greg Smith. He does steadicamlessons.com. Became a great mentor, a great friend. I went out there for a week, and I saved as much money as I could. That's one thing, like I'll encourage you guys, save as much as you can. These jobs are sometimes far and few in between. And luckily, I met my wife on Shameless, just another show here, and she's complete opposite of me. She's frugal, and I'm somebody who likes to spend a lot of money. And it just kind of we met in the middle, and we paid off all of our debt in the first year of marriage, and then we started saving. And if I didn't have those savings, I wouldn't have been able to finance this tool the way that I did. But anyways, I ended up getting the opportunity to go out to LA. I did that, and then right before COVID hit, which was March, um, I bought my rig, and I pieced it together. I didn't buy it brand new. There are some things that are brand new on my rig, which I'll show you, but for the most part, I found other operators that were either selling something old or just getting rid of their things. And I think Guy we talk. He'd tell you guys that like that's kind of how it was. Like, you didn't really. It's expensive to finance the rig. Like if I had to buy my rig brand new, it's probably about $75,000. It's not that easy to just say, hey, I need $75,000. So I saved money. Funny enough, I actually my wife being an actress, she got me on a commercial, and it paid enough that I was able to get some residuals. And instead of spending that money and splurging on like something fun, I ended up buying most of the things that I needed. And it got in right before COVID, and I spent those 5-6 months of COVID just practicing every single day and making it my job since there was no work at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting. Sorry, I'm gonna keep looking back at notes. I'm a little nervous. So I guess getting more into like kind of the weeds of production. How did your relationship with both the production team and specifically the camera team change when you jumped from operating to Steadicam? Just because the build is so much different, and there's other factors that you're starting to pay attention to in that.
Yeah. So there's a hierarchy in film, and for whatever reason, it usually tends to work out, right? And And it's a good thing to have because you have somebody that you can go talk to that's always above you. And what are we going to do now? So with the relationship and operating with like the director of photography, or the production designer, or anybody on set is always based on communication. It's always based on um, what do we need? What do we need to achieve the shot? What do we need to achieve our day? So it's not very different with Steadicam. But the difference with the Steadicam from operating to Steadicam is um, when you put the vest on, when you put the rig on, it's now your world. It's you. And what ends up happening is that you're the dolly grip, and the cameraman. So you're now thinking about three different things that you didn't have to think about before. You have to think about where in space you are. You have to think about what the shot is calling for. Like if you have to think about headroom, you have to think about once you get to a point in operating, you start to realize that what you do makes a difference. If I'm up here versus down here, there's a reason for it. And you have to decide that on your own. Whereas if you're a camera operator, you can look to your dolly grip and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think I should do? And it's a collaboration. When you're on a Steadicam, it's still a collaboration, but a lot of the times in order to execute it, you have to do it yourself. You have to be the one to make the ultimate decision and say, hey, like this is why I did this. Even something small is like at the end of this conversation, pushing in to you, like why did you do that? Or pulling out, like what does that do for the story? So um, in terms of production too, like if you want to think about the grand scheme of Steadicam, uh, in the business side of it, you are your own. Unless you have an agent, you're your own agent. You have to fight for yourself, or nobody will. So you have to. If I'm talking to production, like if I'm talking to the producers, or I'm talking to the production manager, I have to get a certificate of insurance. I have to get my rates. I have to figure out logistics of where I'm going to park, when I'm going to show up. Sometimes with Steadicam, you show up and you're just there for the day. Sometimes you're on the show, the full run. Um, so those are those are logistical things that you have to figure out with the production side. So you have to be able to communicate to get all that, because if not, nobody's going to do it for you. So yeah.
Um, just to kind of jump off what you said about being like both the dolly grip, and you're the operator at the same time. Was it like overwhelming starting that, or do you think that your week in LA and the time that you spent over COVID really prepared you, or is that just kind of something that you settled into over the years?
Yeah, good question. It's still something that I'm still settling into. I mean, if you don't learn something new every day, you've missed an opportunity. There's days where I've done things that you've never. There's some things that you'll never get to do unless you actually do it. Like you can go to school, you can go to seminars, you can go to workshops, but it doesn't. You may not get the opportunity to do that, or you may not get the opportunity, or you may not see it happening. And sometimes you have to learn from failing. And so I'm constantly thinking about that, and constantly finding new ways to do my job better, and to make it look better. Sometimes the best Steadicam operators are the ones that say this isn't a Steadicam shot. There's a better tool for this. It's also not having the ego to say everything needs to be Steadicam, or everything needs to be a oneer. There's got to be a reason for it. And the directors, when you can guide a director and explain to them, this is why I think it's better, that's half the battle. And then learning how the equipment moves, and then now with equipment changing all the time, there's new things coming out, and you can't buy everything because it's expensive. But staying with the times is important.
Is it like relearning, like you own a Steadicam and a Trinity and a Ronin, and I guess my question is, does your experience in one of those, just like in camera movement in general, kind of help you like across tools, or is it like a completely different playing field when you're switching from Steady to the Trinity?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. It's definitely, there's some things that I can, as an operator, I can see certain things. Just some of the basic things, like like understanding screen direction, understanding the line. You know, those are things that most operators would be able to jump in on a rig and say, okay, well, like I need to do this. But when I go from the Steadicam to the Trinity to the Ronins, it's recognizing that each tool has a different. It's like a brush, right? It's like an artist that grabs a brush. You know, you grab for one stroke, you grab a certain brush. You know, for more finer strokes, you grab a finer brush. It's knowing that each tool can do something different, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with a dolly sometimes, but you can't always use it, you know. And with the Steadicam, you know, you have limitations with height. You have limitations with you're physically, it's a human being doing it, so they're going to get tired. And then, you know, with the Trinity and with the Ronins, they're electronics, so things go down. The batteries will die, you know, or the electronics will go out. So it's learning how to navigate all those things, and sometimes they carry over from device to device, but you do have to relearn things. Like learning the Trinity took a long time for me to understand what to do, just in balancing it, and that's not even putting the rig on. Learning how to balance something, you know, it was. Um, a big part of learning how to operate Trinity and Ronins.
Yeah. Sorry. I guess, okay, so this was less about Steadicam and more about just kind of like your experience in the industry. But I guess as young filmmakers trying to figure out how we can start to kind of carve that path for ourselves, what is like some of the traits that you look for in the people that you ask to work with, or the people that you work with consistently?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me is when I see people that are hungry. Like, you know, it was just an opportunity. Some people came up to me outside and they wanted to ask me a question. That to me shows hunger. But humility is a big part of this industry. And unfortunately, we're all human beings. And so what ends up happening is you put us all into one small room, and we're not all going to agree with everything, but it's having respect, having humility, and having the ability to understand that there's a million ways to do something. The way we do it here in the States is completely different than the way that they do it in London, that they do it in France, that they do it in Brazil, that they do it in Germany. You know, it's like there's all these different. I mean, if you go to like India or Japan, they have 4 or 5 people for the same job that we all do, you know, and they're a fraction of the rate, you know. So it's just having the humility to understand that we can achieve the same thing or nearly the same thing different ways, you know, and respecting that. I think also too, um, there is a right place and a right time. So just knowing that like it's not always going to be your turn, it's not always going to be. Um, you can't expect things to happen, you know, right away, and some people are going to have a different experience than you are, you know. And so when you can combine all those things, I think that's really what makes the people that I want to work with, or you know, the people that seem to achieve the most in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I needed to write that down. Uh,
It's on the podcast.
Yeah. We'll get playback. Okay. So, I mean, you kind of gave us an example earlier, but just generally, like, who are some operators that you look up to, or you find yourself wanting to maybe not imitate, but kind of
Yeah.
follow stylistically?
Have you guys ever seen the movie True Lies? No, you guys gotta watch it. It's a masterpiece. So there's a movie called True Lies, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis, and there's a shot where they wrap around as they're dancing, and it's beautiful. He goes slow, fast, and it's a guy that we know. His name's Jimmy Muro, and I've gotten to work with him as I've never seen him do Steadicam. I've seen his work on TV because he's done a lot of movies. He did Heat, he did Titanic, he did um, True Lies. He's done a lot of things, but I got to work with him as a director. He became a good friend of mine working with him in LA, and we know a lot of the same great people. He's definitely somebody I look up to. You know, I'm not going to say this because he's here, but guy's kind of my mentor, so I kind of got to say it. Um, but you learn things from like, hey, how would you do this? How would you handle this situation? And it's not just the camera, you know, like I've had situations where I call up a guy and I say, hey, this is happening on set. What do I do? You know, it could be something political, not politics, red and blue, but like the politics that we deal with people, you know, and like the hierarchy that you have to work with. Um, there's a guy, is a conventional operator. His name is Martin Shayer. I work with him on Divergent, and he's done all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and that was probably one of my favorite movies growing up. Like, you know, watching it, and I say growing up because I was already in my teens and like early 20s when it was going on. But I have an affinity for like those sci-fi, you know, cheesy Michael Bay movies or whatever. So he's a conventional operator, but when you look at him and you watch his work, he's one of those guys that you understand that like you don't need to be a Steadicam operator to be a good operator. You can make a career off of just being a conventional operator, because he's incredible. He's really good dude, and I mean I could name a few more. You know, there's a couple of local guys that definitely encouraged me to pursue this, and they've done some great work too. But I'd say those few people. Yeah.
Um, let's see. You kind of answered like a lot of these. So, oh, okay. I think you've sort of mentioned this, or one potential answer to this, with when you were talking about saving. But I guess what's a piece of advice you would give to maybe college-aged you, or
Yeah.
college filmmakers like coming up to the industry now?
Yeah, I think regardless of career, you know, one thing that I would encourage everybody is, you know, be diligent with with what you have. You know, if you know, I've got this rig and I'm very fortunate to have it because a lot of people want it and they don't have it. So just be grateful for what you've got. But if you have like an opportunity to save, you know, save your money, like especially in this industry, like you don't know when your next job's going to be. You don't know, you know, you could work for a whole month on a movie and then that could be your whole job. That could be your whole year. And I've seen that happen to people, and I've seen people lose their houses, their cars, their families just on bad management of money. Like money is a big thing, you know, and but also take a risk, you know, like if you can when you're young, you have more opportunity to take risks. So, you know, I'm not saying go get a loan and get a rig, but I'm saying if you have an opportunity to learn and grow, invest in yourself, invest in what you want to do, you know, and don't be afraid to like change it up a little bit. You know, I was very naive when I grew up, when I was growing up, when I was starting out. I didn't know that you're not supposed to do certain things on set. You know, you're not, you know, and I got yelled at, and then I learned, and then, you know, I said sorry, and then I said, okay, I won't do that again, you know, and I didn't. And, you know, don't be afraid to like fail, because everybody's gonna fall down at some point. It's really how you get back up that that shows people what you're made out of, you know. So
Yeah.
those few things, you know, I wish somebody had told me when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess unless I'm just gonna open it up. If anyone has any questions, just kind of about Josh's like background or industry, I think we're gonna get ready to get into the rig and the build. Unless anyone has a question. Okay. Yeah. Then.
Sweet.
Yeah. Let's roll.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I'm good. I felt weird. I was like, kept looking down. I'm like, I knew I had the questions, but I was like, I don't want to forget anything.
Go ahead, leave it on there for now, and then. But if you have do you have a flathead? Yeah. So, yeah, basically, this is my Steadicam. When I bought it, I actually bought it from another operator who's named Ramos as well. It's kind of cool. It was on The Walking Dead, if you guys know what that is. That's the only claim to fame that I have. When I bought it, I actually, this is one of the pieces. It's called a battery rack. So, are most of you familiar with Steadicam, or do you guys know it? No. Okay. So, So the Steadicam it consists of a sled, which is this part, the arm, which I'll show you guys, and then the vest. It's pretty simple. Garrett Brown created it, and he did the first Steadicam shot in Philadelphia. And it's changed over time. Battery racks have changed. Electronics have changed. So this part right here is called the battery rack. This part's called the lower electronics. This is the post. This one in particular telescopes, so I can pull it in and out if I need to elongate it at all. You have your yoke with the monitor, and then this is a horizon assist called the Volt. There's a few different versions of it. This is from Tiffin. And then this is the upper electronics, and then your top stage, which is where the camera mounts to. You put a camera plate on here. So you would put the camera plate on the bottom of the camera, and then it would snap into here. Through this post right here, you have electronics that run down, and basically they have these big LEMO connectors that go from one end to the other, and they run HD or SD video, and then they also run power, and they on some of them they run things like tally. Like if you're on a live event, it's the red light that tells you you're working, and which image you're seeing is the one that's being broadcast. On every Steadicam operator builds their rig different. It's kind of something that you can go a lifetime just trying to figure out what's the best thing to do. I change mine all the time. But the cool thing about Steadicam operators is that you want to be consistent. Like you want to do things the same way, so that you build rhythm and you build what's the word? Consistency, I guess it would be the same. So I know there's a little bit of a contradiction there, but this just goes to show you that like you could have somebody come in tomorrow and their rig will be completely different than mine, just because of what they've purchased, companies, availability, budget. It's a big thing. If I had all the budget in the world, I'd probably still go with something like this. But now there's so many companies available. There's Pro, there's Tiffin, there's MKV, there's Optical Support, there's Airy, and then this is just a Steadicam. Like if you want to, there's other attachments you can put. You can put a head on here, like a Cyclo head or a Trinity head, and then that it can expand. It can build out. So it's pretty cool. I typically build my sled out very minimal. I like to keep it very basic, just the regular monitor. I usually don't put a low mode monitor on unless I'm gonna be going low mode. But for this case, I will do that. When I show up to the prep, what I'll do is I'll let the camera assistant build the camera how they need it for the show that they're going to be doing, and then I'll work with them to change it up to what's best for me. So what I can do is they're building the camera, I can build the sled, I can throw some batteries on, I can throw the cables on, knowing what I'm going to need, and then get this ready. So in this case, if I was a Steadicam operator, walking up to this, very nice build, I like it. The one things that I would change is where things go on the camera, because you want to be compact and light, and this is kind of where it comes back to you're the dolly grip, and you're the dolly, you're the camera, and you're the dolly grip. All these things change the balance, and so the most important thing about the Steadicam is balance. Is there's something called the static balance, there's something called dynamic balance. But the main thing is that in order for this to function the best way, it's got to be balanced. And so things on the camera will move around and will redistribute the weight, and they'll create a different balance. So what I would have the camera assistant do is I would pull off mostly everything and start fresh. You can't always do that on TV shows, because if you're going in as a day player, you don't really want to disrupt the flow, or if you want to be nice to your camera assistant, you won't change too much off. cameras like these are super small and they're light, so sometimes you actually want to go heavier. So I would leave stuff on. Um, and depending on how long I'm going to be holding the camera will determine how much stuff I want to have on there. So like if I'm going to be holding it for like a long 7-10 minute oneer, I want to make it as small and as light as possible because it will wear me out at some point. So um, working with the camera assistant, what I would do is I would actually, take this off and move it back here. Let me do this really. And then I would have the camera assistant take off the eyepiece leveler. I'll take this whole thing off. And the reason for doing that with the Steadicam is the more central you can keep everything. Do you guys know nodality? What nodality is? So imagine if I put this on my hand right here, right? Like it balances left and right. If I go here, it's more heavy on this side. So its center of gravity is right in the middle where I want to be. When you start building a camera, the center of gravity typically should fall somewhere where the witness mark goes, but because of lens sizes and batteries and Prestons and everything, the CG changes. So you would like to find the CG of the camera just to make it more nodal. And the more nodal something is, you'll see it, sometimes you'll see it like in the pan nodality, where like if I'm panning and it's not completely centered, there will be some sort of a lag that follows it. So nodality is something that's big in Steadicam, Ronins, and Trinities, because if you want, like if I was gonna do like a spin move or something, it would create an effect that I wouldn't really want to see if it's not centered on its axis, if that makes sense. And if I get a little too nerdy, like technical, let me know. Sometimes I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, but I don't. And then with with something like this, I think I just turned it off, I'm sorry.
You're good.
With something like this, I would just kind of get it all nice and compact, because there's only so many spaces on this plate that I can put the camera on, that I want to get it as centered as possible right off the bat. So then that way it'll make the camera movements a lot smoother, a lot more buttery.
You want this in the front?
You can leave it on there for this one. Let's see how it balances.
Okay, cool. Can I take it off there?
Yeah, you could take it off there. Do you guys have any questions or? All right. I think a big thing with the Steadicam is while this stuff's happening, a good thing would be to like talk to the director, talk to the DP about what the shot's going to be, and it kind of helps you. It'll definitely help you in your build for the camera. It'll help you. You can put it up here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, put it right. And you can work with your assistant, and make sure that they've got everything that they need.
And I have your 2 screws.
Sweet. Thank you. And then from experience, just from looking at it, I can kind of guess where it's going to be. There's different tricks that you can do to find the center of gravity on the tilt. You can put a rod here. You can put it on something, you can put it on something that's very thin and or slim and see where it falls back and forth. And then to find the left and right nodality, or CG, I should say, you would do the same. Instead of putting the rod this way, you would actually put it this way, and you can see where it wants to sit, left and right. And that would determine if I put it in this slot row, if you guys can see that, or if I put it in this one. So you get all these camera packages give you a nice little opportunity to like build it out to what's best for you and for the Steadicam build. So I'm gonna go with the middle for now. Let's see where I land. I got it. And then yeah, one of the biggest things, you know, when you're working with another assistant that you've never worked with, or you know, is just communicating what your needs are, but then also like little things like when you talk to them, you know, make sure you're on the same page with like handing off equipment or whatever, so nothing gets damaged. Actually, let me. All right. So, no, it's okay. So with the with this system, all I would do is wedge it in and then slam it down, and it actually will lock in place. There's a couple of different systems out there that close differently, but basically, I'm almost set. I plug in my SDI cables. Is there an out on this one? No, right? This one doesn't have an out, right?
Yeah, you could plug it into here.
Okay, I'm gonna go with this one here. All right. All right. So normally with video systems like this, you have an opportunity to like loop out, which in this case is what I would need to do to have my low mode monitor and my my regular monitor on at the same time. So in this case, if I switch from regular mode to low mode, I'm gonna have to plug in a different cable just because of the limited amount of ports that we have on this camera. Some cameras like the Venice will have like 4 ports, which is great. Some of them only have 1, like the FX6. So these are things that you're gonna like run into where you're gonna be like, oh, okay, well, I need something to fix that, or I need something to accommodate that. So every build is different, and every situation is different. No matter how many times you go on the same set, things can change all the time. So this is one of the things that you'll learn if you do Steadicam. I'm gonna change it to kind of like 45-degree angles so you guys can see this. With this particular sled, I have this Horizon Assist called the Volt, and but I'll show you what I would do. When I bought my Steadicam, I didn't have the Volt. I actually decided early on that one of the things was that I didn't want to learn how to do it with an assist. I wanted to learn how to do it without, because that's how all the best operators that I've met, they never had an assist. So I figured if I could do it without, then I could do it with. And then I ended up saving some money, and I bought this. You know, like, you know, for real world prices, this is like $12,500. So it's not cheap, and it's not necessary, but it definitely helps out on some days where you just don't know what the weather's going to do, or the wind's going to do, or the situation. One thing that this really does is it's more of peace of mind. Is when I do a shot, I don't have to. It's one less thing that I have to think about. I don't have to think about the horizon anymore, and I can actually focus on the shot. So I can focus on the headroom. I can focus on the size. You know, I can focus on where I am in space, like if I'm doing a wraparound or something. So it's not necessary, and some of the best operators in the world will not buy one of these. But then some of the best operators in the world, like Scott Sakamoto, will buy them. So you kind of have to pay attention to what your colleagues are doing. Let me do one thing really quick. So the first thing with, Steadicam is balance, right? Is where do we start off with? So traditionally, you would have, drop time. With these horizon assists, it's changed the way that we do things, but you can always go back. The cool thing about Steadicam is if this thing goes out on set, I can always go back to what I learned with the basics. So I'll just start there. Basically, the first thing I want to do is I want to find my front to back balance. And I'm going to say that that's pretty good for right now. As you can tell, the camera's going off to the right, and it's more than likely because I have this Noga arm sticking so far out. So what I would do is I would bring it back here, and now I've got to push the camera to the left to offset or to counteract what that is doing. And as you adjust one thing, you'll start to see other things kind of, as you fix one thing, you'll find what other things need to be fixed. So right now, the next part that I would do is I would find my drop time. And what drop time does when you don't have an assist is it keeps the camera, you think of this as like a pendulum, and if the bottom of the pendulum is doing this, it's what we would call top heavy. If the pendulum was doing this, is what we call bottom heavy. And so how this affects the camera movement is the more bottom heavy this part of the sled is, the more controlled up here this will be in terms of what the left and right horizon and the front and back tilt are going to do. So right now this is bottom heavy. What this is telling me is that I need to bring the camera back because it's too front heavy. So there's a couple of ways to adjust it. I can adjust it on the dovetail itself for my big movements, and then I can adjust it with small movements using these little knobs here. And so I'll come back like I said, as I fix one thing, it kind of starts to fix other little things. And so right now I'm adjusting my roll, which is my left, my side to side. And right here, this is what we would call in balance. It's upright, and it's left to right. It's not slanting. It's level, is what I should say, is the correct word. Now, if I go back to my drop time, we counted out 1, 2, 3, and you typically want between a 1.5 to 2 second drop time, depending on what you're doing. If you're in really heavy winds, a lot of guys and girls, females and men, will use a heavier drop time to counteract the wind and the elements. With this system right here, I would actually have a 0 drop time. And it would just sit there. Now, with something like this, it's all in your hands and it's all in whatever you do. And as you can tell, it's starting to go forward. But if I move it this way, it'll start to go backwards. It will literally do whatever I tell it to do. So even though it's balanced, having 0 drop time in the traditional non-horizon assist mode makes the camera more receptive to whatever your hand's doing or whatever you tell it to do. When you add the drop time, it will definitely stay more level. It'll stay more where you want it to be. If that makes sense. So this is called static balance. This is balancing the camera to the monitor and the battery rack, and then balancing it from top to bottom. Probably want to go a little slower. So that's a little slow.
How long did it take you to balance this the first time you set it up?
I spent a day learning how to balance. It's not that hard. When you look at it, when you think about what you're doing, it's really, it becomes easy. But you know, you want it to be as perfect as possible when you're doing it. So you have these different bubbles and spirit levels that tell you what you're doing. But anything can change the balance, right? So like if I move these cables, like if I start messing with this, or I put this cable here as cable management, you know, it's going to start dipping to the right now. So anything can change it. Even like just looking straight down, these cables will move on me, and they'll change where the balance is at. So it took a like at the Steadicam lessons, it took some time to learn how to balance it correctly, and then I spent a lot of time taking it out of balance, and finding the balance again.
I know with the Trinity, it sort of has a weight range where it'll stay in balance. But for the regular Steady, like if we were to do a lens swap right now, you would have to completely pretty much rebalance other than maybe like the side to side.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it all depends because, so you guys, these are the mini Pancros, I think. So if most lenses, like Panavision lenses, they vary in weight. So yeah, if they vary in weight, it's gonna make me be front and heavy, and then it will change my top and bottom weight if I'm not using an assist. Like if I'm using an assist, I will always want it to be neutral balance, meaning no drop time. So it will change it a little bit, but it would mostly just be front to back, and with that, it's as easy as opening it up and then pulling it back. Time to send it to the boys in California because my electronics are. Yeah, so anything you change on here, like if I pull something, if I put a new filter in or don't put a filter in, and then they want to put in a filter, it's going to change the balance. So then I have to come back here and I have to readjust, and these little micro ones are the ones that end up getting it. Which is, the neat thing about when you have the assist, you can actually just go ahead and start it up, and there's a little bit of wiggle room with the tolerance of how much the assist can take, So not to get too much into it, but so this is static balance, right? And then a lot of times you'll see Steadicam operators start to do something like this on set, and they look cool when they're doing it or whatever. This is called, what they're trying to achieve is called dynamic balance. So where dynamic balance is important is if I'm doing a whip pan, well, just always being balanced is a great thing. But if I wanted to go to work right now, I would say this is ready to go. We could do a shot, right? But if I wanted to do like a whip pan and without the assist, because even with the assist, and I keep calling, I call it an assist because it's the Volt, but there's so many different brands out there. It's like saying Kleenex, right? So we'll just say it like that, or tissue, is what it should be. If I wanted to do a whip pan, if I do a whip pan, this should stay level the whole time. But the moment that my pan is not in balance, which is where you get the dynamic balance, it'll start doing this. Like it'll go off balance. So to find dynamic balance, I would spin it on its pan axis, and I noticed that it's kind of going down a little bit on the first, you can see that the lens is pointing down. So I might just take this, move it back a little bit, and as I move one thing, if I move the monitor, if I move the battery rack, now I have to counteract it on the top with the camera. So this goes back to like, if you become a Steadicam operator, you'll learn how to do the CG test. You'll learn, okay, this is where the CG lies. When there's an easy way of getting dynamic balance by learning where your center of gravity is. And you do that when you're prepping the camera. And so now, and the thing with dynamic balance is that you can go one way, like it got better for a second, and it can get worse. Like you can actually make it worse. It's just practicing it. And it takes you down a rabbit hole that you really don't want to go down sometimes, right? You'll be here all night. But like I said, you don't always have to have it perfectly dynamic balance because the shot may not call for it, you know? Still, it's getting there. So you see how it's staying level and the post is not moving? Again, I could keep going at this, but most Steadicam operators, when they teach, they would tell you, hey, you know, like, this is one of the things that will help you, and you learn it on your own time, but it's not something that you would mess with on set, like, you know, unless it's absolutely critical that you have to land a whip pan or whatever. But I was telling Guy the other day I had a job where I practice whip pans, you know, I do stuff at home, but I hadn't done it in such a long time that my brain had completely forgotten that if I have this in dynamic balance, I'm going to have a better chance of landing a whip pan. And so that was a good example of it fighting me. Like I was completely out of balance dynamically. So when I would go throw it, it would want to, this part would want to, you know, move around or fishtail or something. So these are little things that you learn as a Steadicam operator to make your life easier, to make your, you know, to make your job better, you know. So then we have the Volt. Now they have a new Volt called the Volt 3, which is a bigger box, and it assists with the pan, the tilt, and the roll. It's just another way to make money and spend money, which is great. You don't need it, but if you have it, it just helps make your life easier and do your job a little bit better. One of the things with being a camera assistant or a cameraman, camera person, is cable management. You know, it's super important to have everything be nice and clean and tidy. Just because, especially with the Steadicam, you don't want things to get snagged. You don't want things to break while you're operating, and you don't want things to move around on you while you're operating.
So if you guys like have questions literally like any point. Yeah, what's up?
Oh, what was your scariest moment on a set?
Woo, scariest moment. Okay, two of them. One of them was I was doing a TV show where I had an opportunity to do something I've never done before. It's called crane step off, and they basically, it's the name. It's in the name. I started off really high. I probably started off a little bit higher than this ceiling right here, and we boomed down, and then I had to basically like I was holding on to like the railing and holding on with one hand to the camera, and then as we came down, I had to finish off the boom effect of the shot and push off, and a dolly grip had to sneak in behind me with the same exact weight that I was. So I was, with the rig, it's probably like 210. I'm 180. With the rig, it's probably like another 30, 40. And they had to step on, and I had to step off, and then continue the shot in front of the car. So it was basically like I started off super high, pushed off, and then I had to beat the actors and wrap around, and then a car came right in front of me. That was part of the shot. So that was one of them. And then the other one was I was on stage at Soldier Field, and I had to get in front of the actress, and we were up high doing a concert, and it's called the window of opportunity, is what we call it, where you have one moment to do what you're supposed to do. And imagine like, the triangle part of where the stage ends, and it just goes 6 feet down. And that's always my fear, is being the guy that's on YouTube. and I had to basically, with the rig, take a step blindly and step over that to beat the actress or the singer. Were you?
I think I was gonna ask what the show was.
For which one?
The first moment.
It's a show called Force, Power Book Force. I did season 2 on it. Yeah.
How often do you have a spotter when you're making moves like that, or is it just kind of by by chance?
With the Steadicam, you should always have a spotter. You should always have an assist. On this concert, they didn't give me one, which was a bad call on my part because I didn't know. So there's episodic, there's feature, and there's commercial, and that's all the narrative world. And then you have live, which is a completely different beast. Like I do like American Ninja Warrior. That was a concert with Carol G, and it was budget wise, sometimes they don't have that. But I think you should always have an assist. That was the last time I won't have an assist, because if I had fallen, even though I'm insured and my equipment's insured, that could be the end of my career. So, yeah.
Are there specific types of movements that are really difficult, or how do you even coordinate them, like typically for narrative?
Yeah. So, Steadicam is, although it's called Steadicam, is really hard to like hold still, because at some point there's where the connection happens. It's either at your hip or at your back. So the moment your legs start getting tired, or the moment your back starts getting tired, or the moment anything starts getting tired, any movements that you make, and I'll show you guys, unfortunately it'll go into the image, and so because it's literally just connected at one point, which is now connected to your body. When I put it on, you'll see, but it's a mechanism that's based on suspension. So you balance it perfectly, you get it to where it's got to be, and in theory it should stay where it's supposed to stay, but it's not always going to be perfect. Just like a dolly can't go up the stairs, I can't be a dolly. So those are the ones that are for me, those are the toughest things, is figuring out every day how to be more still, how to breathe, making sure my legs don't get tired. But stairs are really tough. Winding downstairs, looking down, looking up, those are tough to do. When you have to coordinate a move, and like a oneer is really tough, because it's all based on making sure that it works from the beginning to the end. So those are things.
So how the heck does one focus pull for these kinds of Steadicam shots where you are moving the camera so much and there's so many different subjects to focus one after the other?
Yeah. Well, Guy will tell you this, but camera operating has changed, so has focus pulling. So focus pullers used to have, before, when the first Steadicam came out, there was a mechanism that an operator could wear to look into there, and they might have a little mechanism that could actually pull focus on their own. That didn't last very long. But the remote focus system is the big part of that. And it used to be that the camera assistant would stand right next to the operator, if the operator's on that side, they'd be on this side, you know, nice and close. And they have something called like a Cinetape or a Panatape. Now you have monitors, you know, that can be remote, it can be offset, and you just pull focus. And if you're doing it by eye, you're just doing it by what you see. Or there's assists that they have called light rangers or focus bugs that will keep the focus for you, or at least tell you where the focus is at. So that's the way that we do it now. Is there anybody? Was there another hand?
I'm pretty sure it was before the fire alarm, but you mentioned how you'd either want to be the guy running in the fire or like a Steadicam. What made you want to become like a stuntman? Or what made you want to think about that?
It's just the athleticism of it. You know, I grew up playing soccer. I'm not the tallest guy, and I was a goalkeeper. So I have little hops in these little legs of mine, and I always wanted to just continue that, you know, and seeing guys jump off of buildings, you know, jump like, you know, out and land in water. I have a fear of heights, but for whatever reason, whenever I find a fear, I like to tackle it, you know. So stunts naturally called to that. So,
So hearing you speak about the Steadicam and operating it, it sounds like it could be potentially a lot of physical strain on your body. So how do you maintain yourself? Because it just sounds like you're kind of living with the camera on you.
yeah.
It's dictating everything in your body, and you're like kind of feeling the camera. Or I mean, making
Yeah.
sense of it.
No, that's a great question. So we were talking about this outside, you know, like union versus non-union. You know, the union, I'm very fortunate that I get healthcare included, and in that healthcare, I get acupuncture, I get doctor's visits, I get, you know, if I got hurt, I have disability insurance, so there's a little bit of peace of mind with that. But I do a lot of yoga, I do a lot of lifting. Um, you know, like even today before I got here, I was doing back and legs because I just, in order to stay doing this, you really have to keep yourself in shape. There's a lot of Steadicam operators that are overweight or obese, you know, because they're strong, they can do that. But for the longevity of it, you know, you have to take care of your body. You have to, if you're not going to eat well, you have to at least maintain some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Flexibility. You have to be flexible. You know, you'll see me stretching from time to time. I have a bad hip just from years and years of deterioration. So I do a lot of prehab and a lot of rehab. And then I do a lot of acupuncture and I do a lot of massage therapy. So those are the ways that I stay in shape for when I get called out for work. Oh, okay. All right, so the cables I've added will help to power and turn on the assist. And so now it's essentially the same thing. I would find balance the same way that I did. Adding those cables is going to change it up just a little bit, not by much. But the big thing is getting this camera now in static balance with the 0 drop time. And then with the cool thing about Steadicam is that there's a community, you know, like in everything you do, you find community, and there's guys and girls that will be like, hey, try this. I figured this out. And so one of the things I learned recently was from an operator was I can actually balance it like this, you know, and there's somebody might walk on set and be like, what are you doing? That's not how you do it, you know? But it's actually with this new assist, it's actually a little bit better where I can dial it in a little bit nicer, and you'll see why. You know, now I know that this is the front to back, you know, that I gotta adjust. And then with the volt, you have to turn it on and give it a second. You have to give it about 3 seconds for it to activate. It's basically just telling the encoder. There's an encoder that goes right underneath here, which is $500 if a camera system plugged it in wrong. It tells it, hey, this is what 00 is. And then now I can walk away and it turns on the motors. And so there's a motor here that handles the roll, and there's a motor here that handles the tilt. And so, if I let go, it will always bring it back to 0. And it's electronic, so you can tell it like, hey, like right now you can see that as I let it go and it comes back to level, it's not going to it's gonna dampen it. It's gonna slowly bring it back to level, so it's not gonna shoot past it. And then with the tilt, the Volt has 2 options. You can do something called regular mode or sticky mode. And sticky mode is basically like when you're operating a fluid head, you have fluid in the head, right? And that's what makes the move nice and smooth. With the sticky mode, it becomes like a fluid head where you can now push and set the tilt, and it'll leave it exactly wherever you put it at, like a fluid head. With everybody's got some different styles that they want to shoot. So like if I wanted to do Dutch shots the whole time, and leave it like this with the Volt, it makes it a little bit difficult to hold Dutch because because it's got the assist on. I can actually tell the Volt, hey, I want this to be my new level. And it's not doing it today. Well, I don't want it to be Dutch anyways, so I'm not a fan of Dutch. No, just kidding. But yeah, that's normally how you would do it. I don't know why it's not doing it today. It's like the fire alarm. You got to be flexible. Huh. All right. Well, I'll go back and figure that out for another time. But if I wanted to do that same dynamic shot that I was doing before, the dynamic balance and the whip pan, you can see that now it's doing it all on its own. I don't have to really do much. It's doing it for me. So that's the benefit of having the Volt. And then, so if I take this off and I let this go, it'll stay activated. So you have to turn it off. So little quirks. So now the sled's balanced. I've worked on making it as good as I can for the shot, and then the last part is connecting it to your body via the arm. And there's 2 things that you have to do when you're connecting the arm. There's 2 types of balances. There's one to balance for the weight, and then there's one to actually balance for what your body does. So everybody's body's different, and so the vest is usually you buy a vest and you build it out to what your body does. Steadicams are very personable. They're very personal. They are made for the individual. So I could go buy Guy's stuff, or he could go buy, Scott Sakamoto's. But because we're all different builds, the Steadicam will be a little bit different, especially with the vest. So if you do invest in a Steadicam, the best place to start is a vest. Get your own vest, buy a new vest, and build from there. Like that would be something that if anybody asked me if I was to redo it again, I would always start off with the vest. So the vest and the arm connect via the socket block, and it just goes in, and you screw these down. And the reason why there's 2 is there's actually a functionality for the top one. If I was to unscrew both of these, there's play, right? But if I screw in a certain amount of turns on this top one, it will actually determine which way the Steadicam will sway away from my body, which I'll show you guys. And then there's also another mechanism in here that I can stick an Allen wrench in here, and it'll push the socket, this part, away from my body, and it'll determine how much it goes away from my body as well. So the Steadicam can fly away from your body front to back or side to side. More than likely, I'll have to tune this. So there's different types of arms. This is a pro arm. In the industry, this would be considered one of the top industry arms. Sorry, I'm blocking the thing. This is a company out of LA, and they're a really great company. They've been around for a very long time, and they create incredible equipment. It's one of the heavier arms, so people are kind of starting to get away from it a little bit. But in terms of, like, this thing is tried, tested, and true. Like, I can go into sandstorms, I can go into monsoons, anything, and this thing I never have to cover it. Well, if it goes in sand, I would probably cover it. But the thing about it is there's these canisters. So there's 4 different canisters that go into it, and they have a spring that's inside of these canisters. And essentially, for every camera package, you tune it based on the weight by either compressing or decompressing these. So with this package, I think it's going to shoot straight up. Oh, no, it's right there. So with the Steadicam, I want this to be basically level, maybe a little bit of a down pitch on this first section of the arm, and same thing with this one. So what I would do is I would decompress one of these canisters on the second section to bring it a little bit lower. And what this is doing is just helping you with your boom range. So your boom range is basically how high or how low you can go. There's different variety of arms out there that can do a little bit higher, a little bit lower, or not so high, not so low. There's some arms that actually have 3 sections, and then there's some arms that have something where you can do micro adjustments on there. So again, it all just depends on what you purchase and what you can afford. So yeah, that's basically the Steadicam built. And then if I wanted to, what's really unique about this system is that I can actually switch this and go low mode, which if you ask any of the older guys, this was something that they wish that they could do, because now if a director says so, which we'll actually show you, but like, this is my max that I can push down, right? And unfortunately, if I'm that low and I can't get any lower, now it all becomes my legs, which you don't really want to do. But if I want to get really low, now I'm much lower than I was before. You can create heroic shots. You can, chase kids. You can as creative as you want to get. So I think that's one of the things that's really neat about this setup is that you can do things on the fly. So, any questions?
Because you said that it's very personal how you tune the vest, how you tune the weight, and how that's your own Steadicam setup. So I'm wondering if the personal tunes kind of conflict with the job's interest.
Yeah, I mean everything is dependent on your experience, right? So sometimes the Steadicam isn't the right tool. It's like knowing that it's not the right tool. Somebody says to me, hey, I want to do this, this, and this, and I'll say, well, that sounds more like a dolly. I think we should do this, Like if it's like a small 4-foot move, you get a 4-foot slider or something like that. When it comes to this, I can't just hand it off to somebody. Some people I could, But if somebody's taller than me or skinnier than me, I can't just hand it off and say, here, you do this shot. Because what's going to end up happening is that the vest is going to either pull them or push them in a certain way, and they're not going to be able to control the rig as elegantly as they would if it was tuned to their body. So really, the only thing that's personal is this part, you know, the arm, and everything else is based on whatever the camera package is doing.
Well, seeing a Steadicam operator, it looks like the movements are incredibly good and it looks seamless. But are you countering any kind of force, and do you physically feel like, what does it feel like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when you're wearing a Steadicam and it's fitted to you, it just feels like an extension of your body. If you're wearing it and it's not properly fit to you, it's going to make you feel very uncomfortable. So what'll end up happening is, if I put this on, this is where it comes down to tuning it, you know, here. I can walk with this, and I can operate. Sometimes I can actually even operate better without touching it, you know? Like, no, I'm serious. Like, sometimes less is more. You guys ever seen the video of the guy that was dancing and he was doing this at Cinegear and it snapped off? Well, that was because it went out forward on him. If that was not tuned correctly, it would be falling away from me or pushing into me. Let me see if I can manipulate that really quick. Oh, I can feel it already. Oh my God. So right now, see how like it's like pulling away from me? Right now, the whole vest has moved on me because that's how out of whack it is. So if I'm trying to operate a shot and now I've got to focus on that, my brain's not going to be able to pay attention to what it needs to do. So yeah, let's never do that again. Somebody else had a question?
And that arm will like just jump right back up. Like I've heard stories of people getting like that don't know how the arm works. Like they'll get smacked in the head or like in the mouth.
Well, definitely in this situation, when I'm standing here, I will always wear it like this because it can literally just get away from me and smack somebody in the face. But this is a spring. You can push it down and it will pop right back up. And then it's because it's based on how much this weighs. So this is probably like 35, 40 pounds right now. So it's got 35, 40 pounds of load on there right now. So that will definitely hurt somebody. And then these things from time to time can break. This is the one thing holding all that weight. So that's why if it goes out away from you and the Steadicam gets away, these small buckle points can actually crack or break. So that's why you also have to maintain your gear, keep it clean, keep it up to date, so that you're not running into those things on set. Because that, unfortunately, it does happen. Like there was a guy in town, his vest of a strap broke, and the only thing he could do was find like some yarn or something like that and strap it back up together. And there was a guy, the guy that I learned from, I don't know if you ever did this, but he actually took rubber bands to make it have more tension and more weight capability. So those are all things that like you sometimes have to be creative with what you do and like think out of the box and say, okay, this is a new way of doing it. I would never have done it that way, but let's try it, you know? So, yeah. Yeah, as far as the Steadicam, does anybody have any questions regarding it? Or what do you want to do?
I was gonna say it's 5:45. I don't want to take too much of your time. We could do
whatever is good for you guys. I know we had that fire alarm. So.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up?
Do you have like any favorite shots?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. If you go on my website, it's Going Steady Inc. All Steady is usually with an I, just so you guys know. A lot of times people put it with a Y, but it's there's a couple of them on there. But I did that the crane step off was definitely one of my favorites. That's not on there, but it was definitely something that was new and different. And like I said, I have a fear of heights, so being able to do something like that and accomplish it and pull it off is pretty huge. There was I did a music video a few months ago, and a lot of times like the free jobs or like the less paid jobs end up becoming the really fun ones because you can be more creative. And we were doing things on there that like you would normally really never do, you know, like fast whip pans on a 50 millimeter, landing at their face nice and tight, you know, and like I did a whip tilt, which, you know, a whip tilt, like a whip pan's easier because you can throw it, but like to tilt down and whip and you're fighting gravity and you're fighting all the different forces to land it can get a little bit tough. And so that was a fun one. We started off with this sign and just landed it and pushed right in, and it just adds so much energy when you nail something, you know, and you impress yourself. You're like, holy crap, like I didn't know that I could do that, you know. So things like that, like I wish I could. That's a good question. It stumped me. Trying to think. I'll have to come back to you because I've got a couple of them that I really enjoyed and I'm really proud of. Yeah. Anybody else? No?
We have like 12 minutes
Yeah.
left. I don't want to like obviously rush any of
No, it's
going
fine.
through a shot, but if you're comfortable, like I'd love to see.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you have 2 volunteers?
Yeah, I think. Lulu, do you? Oh yeah, Abby. Yeah, let's do it.
So, one of the things that you're not always going to learn, like doing Steadicam, so what is it, 25?
Yeah.
Is one of the cool things about being a camera assistant or a camera operator is you kind of learn, you learn focal lengths or whatever and what they do. The 25 is kind of wide, but it's a really fun lens. You can get up nice and close, you know. You can get nice and low, make them look heroic. You can get high, make them look small, make them, you know. And if this was a 50 millimeter, you know, I'd be doing all that from, you know, maybe back here. You know, and so the big thing about Steadicam is, if you guys want to walk with me, you know, it's just, you're just guiding, you know. Go ahead and turn around. You know, and you kind of, I'm following what they're doing with their footsteps as they walk. You know, obviously you can see all the shadowing and everything, but the big thing about the Steadicam is just keeping that same size and that same the distance. And I think that's what makes Steadicam so cool. You don't know that it's not a dolly. So one of the things we're going to do is we'll have her walk in. We'll have Lulu walk in, and you could just be out here. You'll close the door as you can let her in. I'll bring her in, and you'll close the doors after. And this is kind of the thing with like Steadicam is you have to dance around the actors or whatever. Sorry, this is tight. So you'll see what I'm talking about. But Lulu, go ahead and start out there. And what we're going to do is Lulu's going to come in, and I'm going to hinge. I'm going to use my body to pan and open up. And she'll come in. You go ahead and close the door. And Lulu, you can walk and sit down. And I'm going to let her go. And I'm going to track, or dolly. Remind me your name again? Abby. I'm going to track with her. And then I'm going to sit her down. And then you'll see this is going to be in regular mode. It'll look a little bit different in low mode. But then I'll do a wraparound. And what's cool about the wraparound is that you can take a conversation that maybe would have been boring. Hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Just going to them arguing. Well, I didn't like what you said. I didn't like how you looked at Tommy. I didn't like what, something like that. So, and then the reason for going through the door is just everything you do with operating, why are we doing it, right? Just showing that that this camera can go through a door, like it adds a whole different level to your storytelling. Because now it takes you from one set to another, and people are like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool, So I'll show you guys in both high mode and low mode. Let's do this door. So go ahead and take a couple, go that way. All right, go ahead. Come on in. See, and so the thing with the dolly move here, I'm wide enough that I could hold both of them, and it kind of does something to be, feeling both of them. But like when you go to just one person, now your focus goes to them, which is a great example would be the Birdman, because it was a oneer. They could only pick. A lot of times they could only pick one person to be on. So that's the cool thing about the Steadicam is that like I can pick one person to be on, and it's my choice. Where the director, guy might say, "Why did you do that?" And then you give them a reason. Well, her mouth was moving, so I figured she's the most important one. Then the director's going to say, "Well, forget her. Go to the person that's not talking, and see how they feel." And so with the Steadicam, you have that option and the opportunity to do something. Let's see if I can. So that was, go ahead and go back to the doors, guys. Okay, right. This time I'm going to do a camera and action, just because I saw something that I thought was kind of cool. All right, ready? See? All right, ready? Camera and action.
Oh, so you got me a new car. So what's going on with Tommy?
I know, but it's okay because he don't want you anyways.
Okay. No, I'll leave.
Cool. Right? Yeah. So that's one take, right? Like, and it's just you could be creative with the Steadicam. I mean, I could have stopped. I could have gone around again. I could have, it definitely has a different feel in low mode. It takes a little bit, there's the headroom becomes different. I think I lost it a couple times because I was looking at this monitor. It doesn't have anything. But yeah, so do you guys have any questions?
How much do you prepare before going into the shoot?
Yeah, so I always read the call sheet. Like, that's just number one is just knowing what you're doing that day. And if there's no call sheet, you talk to the camera assistants or whatever. But if a lot of times they don't give you scripts, like if you're a day player, until you get there. But if I'm on a TV show, I always read the script. I always try to read it at least once or twice before the show starts or before the episode starts. And then I always try to read it, definitely read what happened before the scene that we're working on or the scene that comes after. There's a lot of, I don't know if you guys follow the Op.io. It's a really great podcast. They talk about this, guys with like hundreds of years more experience than I ever will have because they're that good. That's actually where I learned of Guy was on the Op.io. They talk about like to be a good camera operator, you don't just put on the camera and operate. That's the first step. Anybody can do that. Panning and tilting is one part. Knowing when to pan and tilt, knowing when to dolly, when to boom up is another aspect of it. But where you really become a good storyteller is knowing when to do a push in or a pull out, or like for instance, this is what we call, can you guys stand, just look at each other? So there's this right here creates a different effect than this, and this is all in low mode, so it's going to feel different. This is would be something that'd be a little bit more conventional maybe, but they all create different feelings, and picking a reason or knowing why you're doing that is a really big part of operating. Knowing when to push in. Oh my God, you stole my boyfriend. I'm mad at you, Or when you pull away, she apologizes. Hey, I'm so sorry. You pull away, and they might hug it out and become friends again, And that's how you leave a story sometimes. So there's all these. Can we switch back to regular mode, please? There's all these different reasons of why an operator does something. Sometimes it's just instinct. Why'd you push in? Well, I thought, it drew me in, Then there's also different framing effects that you could do. You can leave a lot of headroom. You can leave a lot of, you can stack them and make them heavier. And you get that from the script and what you read, like you learn where there's tension. Or another good one is, let's say Lulu comes in, she locks the door, and then she drops the key. If that's scripted, that might be a good opportunity to tag that. So if she were to come in, drop the key, I leave her for a little bit, and then wrap around, that's a good opportunity, but you only learn that from the script. So I think it's extremely important to come in as prepared as possible, as much as you can, as much as they give you, but then just paying attention. You learn that in the blocking, you learn that in the marking, and yeah. Anybody else?
Sweet. We're a little over time, so I don't want to take any more away. But,
Oh, you're good.
Unless anyone has any other questions. Well, I just want to say
Sweet.
thanks.
Yeah, no,
thank you
absolutely.
for taking the time out of your busy
Yeah.
schedule. Yeah, this was such an awesome experience. I learned a lot. I bet all of you did too. But yeah, seriously, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming. This is like better than I could have imagined. Maybe without the fire drill. But yeah, I guess this is where we end things off. So thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you guys ever have any questions or want to connect or whatever, if you ever need any advice, my Instagram is Going Steady Inc. I'm friends with Lulu and her dad, and my website is goingsteadyinc.com. You guys can send me an email or shoot me a text. I think my number's on there. But feel free to ask questions. There's not a lot of people it's kind of a crazy time right now with the industry and everything that's happening. But I'll always be as honest and open and kind as possible. So reach out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take the camera off.